Hello, this is Steven Nojiri, and this is another Tada Genji tradition video. This video is actually out of sequence. It wasn't supposed to come until later in the sequence. You know how each video is numbered, so this wasn't supposed to come until later. But I've been asked by numerous subscribers to address this topic, and so I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead to this topic. Now, at some point in the future, I will revisit this topic in full. So once we actually reach the proper place in the sequence, we'll go over these videos, and this is actually going to be a set of videos. But in the future, I will go into much more detail about this topic. But I wanted to go ahead and hit this topic up now because I've had people ask for it. So the question that I've basically been receiving is a combination of one of these two factors. People want more Shinobi videos, which, remember guys, I'm not really big on the whole Shinobi thing. But some of you have also asked for Kusunoki techniques, still though with emphasis on the Shinobi and the spying and the espionage and stuff. Okay, so like I said, I will address these at present. In the future, I will go into much more detail. So this is going to be 3 videos, and each one of these videos will cover a certain aspect. In the future, I will do much more in-depth and detailed videos about all of these points. But I'll go ahead and address this now because I've been asked. And for these videos, I'm going to spend a lot of this first video going over what I call the big disclaimer. Once that's done, then we'll dive into the topic. For these videos, we're going to look at Tada Genji and Kusunoki. On this slide, I said some Hojo-ryu when relevant, but I know because I've prepared the slides, I know that the Hojo-ryu is not really we're not going to actually get into that much. I may bring it up as extra little bit verbally, but it's mostly we're just going to stick to the Tada Genji and the Kusunoki traditions, and of course we'll talk about some of the Chinese sources as well. Okay, so the main part of the first video is going to be this. The big disclaimer. Alright, so I highly advise that the viewers just tune down your expectations when regarding samurai espionage, and in particularly anything related to the ninja phenomenon. I know that Shinobi and ninja is like a hot topic, so is a thing that people get super excited about. But the reality is simply this. Samurai practice asymmetrical warfare, okay, and dozens of roles exist in samurai warfare related to this asymmetrical warfare. While one of them is called shinobi or ninja, there are many other jobs and ultimately functions which are equally important to asymmetrical warfare that is not the shinobi or the ninja. The problem, so like I said, the problem is this. Here's the three key concerns. 1, the tendency of people to only care when they see or hear the word ninja or shinobi. That is a really bad practice. So I would highly advise the viewers, if you're one of those viewers that really only gets excited when you hear the word ninja or shinobi, you really need to work on that, because there's a lot of amazing material that isn't shinobi or ninja. So if you're somebody that only gets excited when you see or hear ninja, that's something that you would do yourself a service to sort of work on that. The tendency of people, even in the late 1600s to call anything asymmetrical as ninja. Now, the viewers should know that, and we'll go over this some more, but in the late 1600s, well, this is the third point too. Late 1600s schools was actually the first ninja boom. We always say the ninja boom was the 1900s, but actually the real first ninja boom was the late 1600s. So these 3 points are why I'm making this big disclaimer, because these need to be addressed before we move forward. Alright, so continuing with the big disclaimer. Many schools, and I put school in quotation mark because I think a lot of people don't have the correct understanding of what is meant by school, so we'll look into that for a moment. Not all of these schools were martial art dojo schools, okay? So you need to throw that concept out. Many of these schools, quote unquote, were actually more like clubs So people would meet at a particular location, they would sit around, they would talk, they would almost like book clubs, they would go over old manuals, they discuss it. The leader of the school would be sort of the head of the discussion. It's not, they weren't, many of these weren't martial arts dojos. They were actually just like study groups, study clubs, gentlemen clubs, where people would meet and spend half the time chit chatting and then spend the other half looking at some kind of some manual, and then the teacher would do questions and answers. Many of these schools were actually government supported training courses, or the lord of the province wanted to create a group of people that did a particular function in his domain that he's responsible for. So then there's a training course for people that are to serve that function. And so many of the schools are those training courses. So you have to understand that when you say, these schools, you really need to have a much wider understanding of what that could potentially mean. So these schools, quote unquote, popped up in the 1600s. Okay, right? Many of the schools in the beginning of the 1600s were training courses and these clubs. It wasn't until the later 1600s that you began to have many of these schools competing with their rivals for student attendance. Basically cash and prestige. A lot of schools opening, right? Sometimes it was people that had a job and they were doing this on the side. Sometimes it was unemployed people, so they opened a school. A lot of these schools opening in the later 1600s, and they're all competing for students. Okay, so because they're competing for these students, it was not uncommon. In fact, it happened quite a lot that many of these schools took on anything remotely asymmetrical and called it ninja. Because why? Because it was cool and it attracted people. And this was basically the ninja boom of the late 1600s. If you're well versed in studying the old manuals, records, and documents, you can usually pick out what is what. You can usually get an idea of, is the stuff in this document really like specific to this tradition, or does it look like somebody has just gathered a bunch of material together and slapped ninja on it. But there's a lot of people who don't have this experience with the historical documentation, and so a lot of people have difficulty distinguishing what is pre-boom and what is a product of the boom. And not all of the boom products are bad. Like the Ban Senshukai, that is absolutely a product of the ninja boom of the late 1600s. Okay, and while it does have some of its own challenges being a boom document, it actually helps us a lot, because even though it's a boom document, it records a lot of data. Some data, such as the details of lockpicking, that don't exist in pretty much anywhere else, right? So there's a lot of data in the Bansen Shukai. And also the Bansen Shukai is easy to break down. Like, if you know what you're looking at, you can tell this is from this school, this is from this tradition, this comes from here, this comes from here. Someone who's not familiar wouldn't see that, but once you're familiar with the documentation, you can easily analyze and easily break the Bansen Shukai down. So it's a massive amount of data, and it's easily analyzed. So before we move forward, this is what I ask of the viewer. I ask the viewer to understand the following. 1. Do not focus on the word shinobi or ninja. If you are hung up on the word shinobi and ninja, then honestly I'm not sure how much you're going to get from the entire channel, let alone these espionage videos. 2. Do not lose interest if you don't see the word shinobi or ninja. Again, try working on that. If you, the viewer, are not hung up on shinobi or ninja, that's great. But if you examine your own mind and you realize that you're really hung up on that word, I really advise that you work on that, because there's a lot of amazing material here to learn and to enjoy. But you got to get over that sort of psychological barrier of only getting excited if it's shinobi or ninja. The third thing is that the overstuffed concept of ninja was born from the competitive marketing practices of the schools in the late 1600s. The actual shinobi no mono is far less complicated. 4. A shinobi ninja was either an infiltrator spy or a militarized sneak thief sent to scout on the enemy. Now that's a previous video, went into detail about that. But again, all of these points is for you, the viewer, to be able to enjoy and become excited by and inspired by all of this samurai espionage, whether it does or doesn't have anything to do with quote unquote ninja. Right? Because, and we'll continue down the list, so many other jobs and functions exist within the samurai asymmetrical warfare that are thought of as ninja, okay, but they're not really ninja. Just because in the late 1600s somebody may have lumped them all together and said, oh, this is all ninja. I mean, if that helps you get excited for it, I suppose that's helpful. But the reality is, it's much more amazing if you look at it as it is, not all clumped together as ninja, but allow yourself to be excited by each and every one of the different asymmetrical roles, because that's the way it actually was during the Warring States period. And, during the Nanbokucho, the Yoshino Jidai, the Sengoku Jidai, these roles were not all lumped together as ninja. They had their own function. And it is good, okay, and that it is it's fine, it's okay, right? Because samurai espionage requires many different functions and jobs to be successfully done. It is a good thing. It's actually pretty awesome in the study and in the understanding of samurai warfare to properly understand that samurai asymmetrical warfare isn't just one thing. It's not just a ninja, but it's actually a collection of roles and functions. And honestly, all of these jobs are cool. All of these jobs, it's okay to like them. Sometimes I've met some people who are afraid to like anything if it doesn't have the word ninja attached to it. And it's really okay. You can like Monomi more than you like ninja. It's fine, All right, so this first video, again, I told you it would be one giant disclaimer, and then we'll move into the other parts. So again, let go of the need to only feel attracted to ninja. Genuine samurai asymmetrical warfare has many different roles, jobs, and functions, and each one of them is needed to secure victory. Yes, a single person may be trained in multiple jobs and may even serve on the same mission as multiple roles, but this is because he is a samurai who is multitasking various jobs and functions. Think of it this way. First and foremost, a samurai. Then second is what job or function is being utilized for this mission. So, for example, there's a samurai. He might be a shinobi no mono, but he also could be an escort, a guard, if you will, like a bodyguard. That doesn't mean that he's a shinobi bodyguard. It means that he's a shinobi when the time for that function arises, and then he is a bodyguard when the time for that function arises. So one person can have multiple functions that they can fill, and you don't need to try to tie everything back to shinobi. Again, the entire purpose of this first video is the disclaimer that it is really in your best interest to move beyond this addiction to the concept of the word shinobi. When you do that, you will then be able to look at the totality of samurai asymmetrical warfare and really get something profound from it.